Henry VIII of England did not die a sudden or violent death, but his end was gruesome and slow due to years of physical deterioration and chronic illness. Here's a detailed account of his final years and the circumstances of his death. Background: Henry VIII, 1491–1547, King of England from 1509 until his death, is best known for his 6 marriages and for initiating the English Reformation. In his youth, he was athletic and handsome, but decades of overindulgence, injury, and ill health took a severe toll on his body and mind. Declining health by his 40s, Henry was grossly overweight, likely weighing over 300 pounds, 136 kilograms. His waist measurement reportedly reached 54 inches, 137 centimeters. He suffered from multiple ailments, chronic leg ulcers. Possibly from a jousting injury in 1536, his legs developed ulcerous wounds that would not heal. They oozed pus, stank terribly, and left him in constant pain. Obesity and immobility. He became so large he needed mechanical devices to move around, and his servants used hoists to lift him in and out of bed. Type 2. Diabetes or Cushing's syndrome. Speculated. These conditions might explain his obesity, mood swings, and other symptoms. Possible syphilis or gout. Some historians have suggested syphilis, though there's no firm evidence. Gout, known as the disease of kings, is more likely. Mental and emotional decline toward the end of his reign, Henry became paranoid, cruel, and unpredictable. He executed several close allies, 2 of his wives, Anne Boleyn and Catherine Howard, and ordered purges against perceived enemies. His mood swings worsened, possibly due to physical pain and deteriorating mental health. Final days and death, 1547. Henry's condition rapidly worsened in late 1546. He was bedridden, bloated, and had painful sores that reportedly burst and emitted a foul stench. Physicians were afraid to tell him he was dying. Treason laws made it dangerous. He eventually named his son Edward, aged 9, as his successor. He died on January 28, 1547, at the Palace of Whitehall in London, likely from a combination of kidney failure, untreated type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and septicemia from infected leg ulcers. After death, gruesome details. Henry's body continued to decompose rapidly after his death. While being transported to his burial site at St. George's Chapel in Windsor Castle, his corpse reportedly burst open due to the gases of decomposition. A legend, from chronicler Gilbert Burnet, says some of his bodily fluids leaked from the coffin and were found being licked up by stray dogs at Sion Abbey, a ghastly and symbolic end, seen by some as divine justice. The dogs licked his blood, as they did that of Ahab. This account is disputed by some modern historians as Protestant propaganda, but it remained part of his dark legacy. Certainly. Let's continue with the aftermath of Henry VIII's death, and then explore how his memory and legend evolved, still wrapped in the grotesque, ominous shadow of his final years. The burial and final resting place. Henry VIII was buried beside his beloved third wife, Jane Seymour, at St. George's Chapel, Windsor Castle, in what he had intended to be a grand tomb. But despite his massive ego and detailed plans for a monument rivaling ancient emperors, his tomb was never built. The sarcophagus that had been prepared for him was eventually used for Admiral Lord Nelson centuries later. Henry's actual grave is marked only by a simple marble slab, which also lists Charles I, another king buried there, decades later, after his execution. This quiet, almost forgotten resting place is a bleak contrast to the grand image Henry had of himself. The second Solomon, the English Caesar, a monster or a monarch. In death, Henry VIII became both myth and warning. Protestants hailed him as the man who broke Rome's grip on England and established royal supremacy over the church. Catholics saw him as a tyrant and heretic who spilled blood, dissolved monasteries, and died in agony, rightly punished by God. Historians over time have painted him as a tragic figure, brilliant and reform-minded in youth, but undone by power, obsession, and chronic pain. His grotesque final years became part of the cautionary tale, a man once glorious, turned bloated, paranoid, and diseased, haunted by his past. A body literally rotting before death, consumed by the sins of gluttony, wrath, and pride. Cultural echoes and dramatic interpretations. Henry's horrible decline has been dramatized in novels, plays, and films, often focusing on his leg ulcers and the stench they produced, his violent rages, as when he ordered the execution of Catherine Howard after her betrayal. The pathos of a dying tyrant, surrounded by courtiers too afraid to speak. Truth. He remains one of history's most compelling kings, not only because of what he did, but how he ended. A monarch brought low by his own appetites and unchecked power. The King Must Die. A Monologue by Henry VIII, 1547. A vast, dimly lit chamber. Heavy tapestries hang, but cannot contain the stench of decay. Henry lies propped in a massive bed. His leg is bandaged and seeping. He speaks into the silence, to no one and to everyone. "Henry," they whisper outside the curtain. I hear them. Physicians, priests, cowards all. They dare not say it, that I am dying, as if a king can't smell death when it sleeps in his own bed. Sneers. Bah. Let them fear. I've broken popes. I've drowned rebels. I've made England mine, carved it like a beast on the table, and still they flinch from telling me what I already know. He strains, breathing hard. My legs, foul and treacherous limbs. Night once I was, a lion in the lists, golden and fierce. Now look at me, bloated, fetid, trapped in this prison of flesh. Even the dogs flee my scent. Pause. He glances toward shadows. Anne, Catherine, Jane. I see them, you know, my queens, like specters at the bedfoot. Anne's eyes still blaze. Catherine begs for justice. And Jane, sweet Jane, you whisper nothing. You gave me a son and fled this cursed earth. He groans, rage flickering. Was it all worth it? The church broken, the monasteries pillaged, the oaths soaked in blood. I gave them a godless kingdom and called it reform. I made myself their priest and their executioner. God, do you watch? Do you judge kings the same as butchers? Do you tally heads and weigh hearts? Softer now. Weary, the fire dims. Edward, you are but a boy. They will chew you to the bone, those wolves in court silks. I leave you a throne slick with blood and rot. Forgive me, son. He tries to rise, fails, slumps. Adashi, pain. It is a crown I cannot take off. One last breath, a bitter smile. If hell has a throne, let them make room. The king is coming. Henry VIII died loathed by many, feared by most, and left behind a deeply divided kingdom. His reign ended in grotesque contrast to the glory and vitality of his youth, a tragic fall marked by tyranny, torment, and a body that betrayed him in the end.